Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're here for another Monday mini-sode.
Yeah, Monday mini. Today, we're kind of doing a little bit of our forecast.
We pulled out the crystal ball.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of our future prophecy. What is going to happen in the world of thrift stores? Now, Mike and Orlando have been right about a lot of things, and we've been wrong about a couple things, I'm sure, over the years. There's been one or two things we've been wrong about. But basically, this is just an episode where we're going to try and figure out, as reselling has changed and continues to change. And if you haven't checked out our last episode, we talked about how we've changed as resellers. But we're also going to kind of look at what we think is going to happen with thrift stores over the next few years, how we can prepare for that, what it's going to mean for us as resellers. And again, we don't know everything, certainly not, and we can be wrong. So let us know in the comments below. Maybe we missed something. Maybe there's something you think that is going to happen with the thrift stores in the future. We'd love to hear that and have that discussion going. So what's our first thing?
I think competition's going to explode. It already has. It's only grown, but I think it's going to get far worse. I think due to the downturn economy, I do believe that we will be in recession. Some people are even talking about like mild depression now. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. One of the things is there's really nothing we can do other than just prepare for the worst. I mean, I don't think everybody needs to like be a doomsdayer, but it's never bad to be prepared in case things are bad. But I've never heard people that I respect in economics talking about mild depression. Like I never thought I would hear that word again. Now, how does this relate to reselling before we get lost on it? People are going to go where the deals are. Yep. Now, that does mean eBay. I think as resellers, we will do better as long as we're able to find that product that we can sell at a lower price for people looking for bargains. But, for clothing, for appliances that they can take home and use, for shoes, whatever it may be, a lot more people are going to go to thrift stores. And thrift stores know this. And that's why thrift stores, I believe, have gone more to a retail model. Like you go to your latest, Goodwill, the store that shall not be named. Like they're not looking like thrift stores anymore. They're looking like your TJ Maxx or your Marshalls. Boutiques.
They are. Yeah. And like even the way they set up their racks, how they set up their merchandise. So I think there's going to be an explosion, which means there's going to be a lot more competition for resellers. I don't know. I go back and forth because, I saw this. There was a TikTok, which I was interesting because Goodwill responded in the comments and somebody had shown how their electronics were obnoxiously priced. And that Goodwill said, oh, we'll take care of that. What store is that? Sorry, that shouldn't have happened, blah, blah, blah. But I do think in time, that it's not going to be just resellers paying those prices. I do think it's going to be the general public. You think I'm wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do think there's going to be an explosion in the competition there, and the competition is going to come from two angles. It's going to come from resellers because people are trying to make ends meet. There's already resellers hitting up thrift stores. I think as the economy gets worse, just like we saw with the 2020 issue, people are going to try and find ways to make ends meet. And reselling is one of those ways that there's going to be an increased competition there. So you're getting the double. And along with that, I think that leads to higher prices on two fronts, right?
Which they're already high.
Yeah. So they're already high, but you've got the typical inflation, the things that are going on, things just cost more. And as they have to pay their employees more, as things get more expensive, as their electricity bill goes up, as every bit of their expenses go up, those prices get passed down to us as whoever's buying the product. And so those prices are going to rise for that aspect. And then it's also going to rise because of the popularity. If there's a 10 to 20% demand increase at thrift stores, which, I mean, doesn't sound like that much, like a 10% increase in demand of products at thrift stores. Well, price is based off of supply and demand. So unless they have that much more supply, which again, people are going to be holding on to stuff. The reason why there's so much stuff at thrift stores is because people go and buy new stuff. They take their old one and they donate it in a donation box. Well, if you don't have the money to buy new things because prices are going up, there's going to be less items going to thrift stores, I think, which means the supply is down. And if supply goes down, prices go up. If demand goes up, prices go up. So if supply goes down and demand goes up at the same time, prices are going to rise exponentially on top of the inflation prices that we already have. And so I do think that we're going to see increase in prices at thrift stores. And I don't know if it's going to be long-term. Prices typically don't come down. Like when prices go up on things, people kind of accept that as a new normal. But it might be a temporary thing in the sense of the popularity then begins to wane, because that's really the reason why price is that middle point of supply and demand. So if they try to set the prices too high and then demand drops because people are like, well, thrift stores aren't actually that much cheaper than going to retail, I'm just going to go to retail. Well, eventually the thrift stores will drop those prices again. So there's going to be an ebb and flow until we find the new place. But I definitely think prices are going to go up in the short term and potentially long term at thrift stores.
I don't think prices will ever go back down.
Yeah. I mean,
that's how inflation works. Yeah. Inflation may go down, but it's not like, I'll use McDonald's, easy example, right? McDonald's 3 years ago, McChicken was $1. Now McChicken's like $2.50. It's never going to go back to $1.
They're not going to say like, hey guys, guess what? Gas prices have come down a little bit. Inflation is under control now. So we're going to lower our prices.
And guess what? $2.50 is cheap.
Yep.
Right. And that's sad. And so a Hawaiian shirt that, back in the day was $5 or maybe $3 and now it's $10. We're going to start going to $10. Wow. Sources for only $10.
Deal.
I'm telling you, it's going there. Now, I do think there's going to be less selection. I think for resellers, there's going to be less selection. I think for the general public that's trying to find a deal and, they want to get that natural issue Hawaiian shirt or they want to get that, Target brand jacket, that'll be there. But as far as the hot selling items, I think the days of finding major scores at thrifts will still be here, but it's going to be few and far between. I can't think of the last time I had a major score from the thrift. I mean, I've had scores, don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about a major score. I'm talking about something that I found for, 10 or 15 and I sold for $500 or $1,000. I think that's going to be the rarity. So do you agree or disagree on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Again, going back to what we talked about before, I think supply is going to go down. I think more people are going to be there picking stuff up. And if there's a 10% increase in the number of people at a thrift store, the chances of them stumbling across, even if they're just your normie person who's not a reseller, and they're like, oh, wow, look at this. This is really nice. And they pick it up. And so then you don't get it. You don't get to flip it. And those thrift stores are working really hard to try and make money too. And so they've got people who are looking, they're selling stuff online. They're going to be a little bit more picky about what's going out on the floor versus what's going to be flipped. And so, your chances of finding stuff, it definitely goes down. And it makes things like local deals and garage sales a little bit more appealing for sure.
All right, now Mike already said before the podcast he disagrees with me on this one, and I think I might be wrong too, but I think bins are going to grow in popularity. This is why I say this, and then I want to hear what Mike has to say. Bins, I think, are at an all-time high in popularity right now. Right, years ago, people would go to the bins and there would be no crowds. Like I know some resellers that have been reselling for a long time, and they would tell me they would go to the bins. No one would post on social media about the bins. And so you literally could walk in and have 2 or 3 bins to yourself and no one would show up. And you just like spend your time sorting through stuff. Now you go on social, it's like the crowds wanting bread during the French Revolution. Like, it is insanity. I used to think the crowds were crazy 2-3 years ago when I would go to bins. Now it's like next level. Like, the bins go out and there's just people and just crowding it. And this is not even in urban centers. It's out in parts of the country where there's not a lot of people and people are rushing to the bins. And so I think my thoughts are, as thrift stores see that this is popular, why not open another bin location and open another one and another one? Because the demand is there. And so they're going to want to meet the demand, and they see that there's an ample supply of inventory, and they have, more connections. And I do think there's going to be more bins. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to, I think the popularity as far as people wanting to go to them may be the case. But if our predictions are right with thrift stores, I think that thrift stores are going to have fewer items to send to bins. If we see that demand goes up and supply goes down, people aren't donating as many things to thrift stores, people are sourcing at thrift stores for just their everyday life now, there's going to be fewer things that make it, because bins is basically overflow, right? It's like these things have sat inside of a thrift store for way too long, or it's been in the back and it's not going to make
so
it
much
out,
and they just throw it out there.
Exactly. It's overflow. No matter how you look at it, it's overflow, right? I see. And so it's either the trash leftover overflow, or it's we don't have time to process this stuff, just send it to the bins. We've got too much going on right now. But in the same way that one of the reasons why there's like two reasons why used car prices are up so high right now. One is there's like the chip shortage and issues of getting chips. And so new cars were harder to get. But two, and we see this like whenever there's a recession, people hold on to cars. People hold on to things. They're more willing to get it fixed. Hey, it's going to cost me $600 to fix this part of my car versus I'm going to have to pay like astronomical prices for a new car. I'm holding on to my car. And as people hold on to things, I think we were talking about this with some people on our Discord just this last week. As people hold on to things, I think somebody mentioned even too with the kitchen electronics that I was talking about. The reason why a lot of those things do well is because people know it works. They're built to last a little bit longer, and they're going to try and repair and fix things, as opposed to, hey, if I buy a new one, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg, or I can spend $20 to fix this part on my washing machine. And so as people are holding on to things, less things make it to donation centers. If places like Target are having a hard time getting their inventory out the door, that they're slashing prices because they've got overflow and people aren't buying because people don't have the money, that goes to show that we're in this weird spot in our economy right now where people want, but they can't afford. And so they're not buying. And so there's not excess of leftovers. And so I just can't imagine the bins continuing to thrive with just tons and tons of overflow. Maybe it does, but if there's still so many people going to bins and there's fewer and fewer bins every time, eventually people are gonna be like, this is not worth it. So I don't know.
Let us know in the comments. Let us know your thoughts. I'm interested. All right, so this next one's gonna be controversial, I think, but I think that thrift stores are gonna make more alliances with resellers. And what I mean by this is you already see it happening. You see it happening on Whatnot. You see it happening on YouTube. There's different companies now that are based from resellers that are getting inventory from the thrift stores, and then they're repackaging it into bundles that are being sent out to resellers that want them. And so I do think that thrift stores are going to become more automated, but overall, I think there's going to be this movement in the reselling community where the big YouTubers, and you already see it happening, but the bigger resellers, the way that they're going to be resellers is that they're going to sell to the masses. They're going to sell to the new people that aren't going to want to go out there sourcing.
Wholesalers.
Basically.
There's going to be used market, secondhand market wholesalers.
Which there already is. There's a huge wholesaling business and reselling, but I think it's going to grow even larger because those individuals that have the connection, that know people, they're going to see that a lot more people are going to try to get in reselling. And instead of going out there and sourcing and trying to be, pickers, they're instead going to see that there's a way more of an advantage of using their audiences for profitability through selling those bundles.
Yeah, could be.
I just think I already see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening, but yeah, man, it almost seems like, even though it's already happening to an extent, like an untapped market potential for companies to try, of, hey, you want to resell stuff? I mean, people already get pallets, but that might become like buy a Goodwill pallet, buy a whatever pallet.
Well, as there's an overflow, as there's more inventory, as thrift stores are, due to a downturn economy, maybe they don't want to pay, wages to individuals. Instead, they'll go like, hey, we can sell these huge, massive bundles of inventory to a reseller with a large audience, and then that reseller could sell it to their audience, right? And so I just see there's going to be more of that. I do. And so I already see it happening. I know some resellers right now that have special relationships with thrift stores that say, hey, if you have this kind of inventory, set it to the side, and then we'll give you this amount and we'll pick it up. And so to the thrift store, instead of it sitting in their store, they know they have, a quick sale. And so they do. I know multiple people that have already established. So before you even walk into the door to to source certain items, those items have never reached the sales floor and they never will. And I do think that's going to grow in popularity. So I don't know. Controversial on that? Don't know. I don't think it's controversial. If you make it happen, you make it happen. But I think it's going to be more of commonplace for that to happen. So, all right. So, hey, let us know your thoughts. I do, I tag on this. I think there needs to be the ability for you to find other ways to source outside of thrift stores, if thrift stores have been your only go-to. So just check it out. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling leads.
Peace.